let's talk about Canelo for a second. We're now about 2 months away from that, penciled in date of the Mexican Independence Day weekend that Canelo prefers to fight on. We've heard a number of different names floated out there, but in the last couple of days, Oscar, we have seen some of the names connected, take themselves out of the mix, whether it's Billy Joe Saunders, Sergey Derevyanchenko about to sign a fight with Jermall Charlo. Where do we stand with Canelo's next opponent?
Well, look, we have pending meetings this week. We are working every single day, day in, day out, to get this done. And like you said, look, fighters these days, they price themselves out because they don't want to fight. They price themselves out because they have advisors whispering in their ears that they're worth more than what they really are. The fact that you fight Canelo, it doesn't mean that you should be making triple or quadruple the money you're making now. And you have to take into consideration the pandemic. It's different times now, and fighters have to realize that they have to take pay cuts. And so it's been a very difficult process, but we feel very confident that we'll have something in writing, something nailed down in the next few days. Like I said, we have pending phone calls and meetings with Team Canelo and his team. So we feel that we can get something done, hopefully by next week.
I do think that you're right about that part where fighters say we're going to fight Canelo, we deserve 3 times more. I think that's wrong, and I think fighters, frankly, should roll the dice on themselves a little bit, because as we saw with Andy Ruiz, like you take Andy Ruiz made $4 million, good money, but you take a little bit less money to get the fight, and if you win the fight, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So whoever beats Canelo probably gets a rematch for $10 million plus the next time around.
And that's exactly what fighters don't realize, is that you have to beat the champion in order to make champion money. And a lot of fighters, unfortunately, are being whispered in their ear by people who just don't want to make these big fights happen. And it's very frustrating. It's difficult, but look, like I said, we've been in this business for a long time. We know how to deal with teams, with fighters, with managers, with everyone who's talking in the fighter's ear. We'll get this done. We've never failed anybody, and we will continue to deliver the best fights possible.
How would you characterize the impact of the pandemic on these negotiations? You kind of touched on it. Like, there's not going to be an $8 million gate or a $10 million gate in this fight. How significantly has that affected these negotiations?
Yeah, it's been very difficult. When you take into consideration, a 15, 17 and a half, $20 million gate, for instance, that we could have generated with Triple G and Canelo the third time around. It's a big blow to everyone. But everyone has to understand that, pay cuts are going to happen. They have to take place in order to make these types of fights happen. But I'm very confident. I'm very confident that it shouldn't be an issue when you have the viewer who's at home desperately wanting entertainment. We strongly feel that with boxing coming back, for instance, July 24th, it's going to be a great thing for not only DAZN, not only for the boxing fan, but for everyone involved. People want to be entertained, and people want to see great fights. And I can assure you that, when a Canelo fight is announced, it's going to be the biggest thing across the globe, because people are yearning to watch the biggest star in boxing.
DAZN, as you mentioned, coming back post-pandemic. You're the first show that they'll do on the 24th. They'll do another one at the end of August. You have a long-term deal with DAZN. How would you characterize that relationship, the strength of that relationship at this point?
It's a wonderful relationship. I mean, look, we're the promoter who moves the needle for DAZN here in the USA. We have the biggest star. We have upcoming stars like Virgil Ortiz, who's fighting July 24th on the first show back. We have Ryan Garcia, who can be a superstar in the sport of boxing. So, our relationship is an amazing relationship that's growing. We're nurturing the relationship in order to become the biggest and the best. And that's exactly what we want for DAZN, and that's exactly what they want for us. We're a team. We love working with DAZN, and we're gonna make sure that we deliver the best of the best always.
Your relationship with Canelo has been scrutinized a lot over the last year or so. I mean, where does that stand now? I mean, I know both you guys were in Tahoe for the golf tournament just this past. Did you interact with him? Was there any exchanges there?
Yes, there were actually, and it was very pleasant. I was very happy to see him there, and he was having a lot of fun. He was with Stephen Curry, and hitting golf balls and interacting with the fans, and so I was actually genuinely happy for him that he was in that. So, we'll see what happens.
You've kind of tied, this, Delo.
In the morning, I couldn't, take myself to the gym and spar 6 rounds. Now it's like I have this motivation, just I guess, to do it for myself, to prove to myself that I can do it, and so we'll see what happens.
You've kind of tied, this idea of coming back to what Tyson is reportedly going to do, come back in some way, shape, or form. Tyson, it seems like, is going to come back in some kind of exhibition-y sort of bout. It doesn't seem like he wants to come back in a real fight. How do you approach that? Do you want to come back for something real, or would you rather come back for, De La Hoya Mayorga once again, or something like that?
I would actually come back in a real fight. I mean, everyone who knows me knows that I just go for the best right from the top. And so, I mean, I remember taking, I think it was close to 3 years when I fought Mayorga in a comeback fight. So there's no tune-up fights for me. There's no filling out process. I want to go straight to whoever's the best out there.
You knew after losing to Pacquiao back in 2008 that it was time. Like that it was time for you to retire. What makes you think now that 12 years later that you can hold up against the best?
Well, I mean, look, there's a lot of, I guess, variables that come into play. I mean, look, you take a look at the Pacquiao fight, and I mean, that wasn't me. I have to admit. I mean, coming down from 160 back to 47 and losing the muscle, and obviously no excuses. Pacquiao's an amazing fighter, amazing friend. He did a number on me, but it wasn't me at 147, and I was weighing actually 144, which, I mean, I was a zombie, a walking zombie. I strongly feel that if I come down to 154, which I can, and I know I can, I can do something. I can do some damage to a few fighters out there. I mean, skill is involved. Obviously, my power, you never lose power. Maybe my timing might be off a little, but that's something that I'm gonna have to figure out when you're up there. So there's a lot that comes into play, and I strongly feel that I can do it.
Are you doing this right now on your own, or are you working with a trainer or a team of some kind?
I'm actually working with a small team of people here in Pasadena. Nobody that the people might know out there that have a name, but they're helping me out to get in shape, to make sure that I don't get injured. Make sure that all those little fibers and muscles and tendons stay strong in order to take it up to the next level. And that next level is starting my boxing camp, a serious boxing camp, and then we'll take it from there. So it's 2 or 3 levels I have to get by, and then step it up a notch. And that notch is ultimately sparring with big time fighters, fighters who have experience, fighters who are championship caliber.
You've worked with several big name trainers in the past: Floyd Mayweather Sr., Freddie Roach, Nacho Beristain. Have you given any thought at all to who might work with you in this process?
Well, I mean, the only person that comes to mind, and the only person that I would ask humbly is Floyd Mayweather Sr. Floyd Mayweather Sr. Is the only trainer that can tell me to wake up at 5 a.m, is the only trainer who can push my buttons and make me work hard and smart. So I would actually go to him and humbly ask him if he can do this favor for me.
So do you have a timeline for when you'd want to make a decision like this? Is there something in your head that says, all right, by date X, I have to figure out if I'm going to do this or not?
Yeah, by September, I'm hoping to spar 12 rounds on a regular basis. And by that time, I do want to make that decision of fighting first quarter of next year. So,
I mean, you want a big fight, Oscar. You happen to have the biggest star in boxing in your stable. Is it possible De La Hoya Canelo in 2021?
I don't know.
That's not a no, Oscar. That's not a no.
Crazy, but not that crazy.
So not that level of fighter, perhaps. Not the best number one pound for pound on some lists.
Canelo's an amazing fighter. He's the best. He's the pound for pound champ. He's hits like a mule. I don't know, Chris, you're throwing me in the fire here, but that's a challenge that I never back down from anybody. But we'll have to wait and see.
Wow. Oscar De La Hoya says he never backs down from anybody and possibly opening to fight his own fighter, Canelo Alvarez. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash App, and the Patreon family. We working. Wow. I'm trying to give you guys some reaction to this Oscar De La Hoya interview. The link is in the description. Also in the description, Patreon, sign up for the Patreon or the YouTube channel member. Become a YouTube channel member. And those are great ways to support the channel. Let's talk about it. Oscar De La Hoya, he talked about possibly fighting his own fighter. Listen, I mean, my thoughts are, what? It just sounds too crazy. First of all, I think this is a bad sign for Golden Boy, in my opinion. Here's what. Golden Boy Promotions has storied trouble with Canelo in recent memory and Ryan Garcia. We know that much. Like, that's public issue, public knowledge. And Canelo, at the time of recording this video, today is July 23rd. Canelo wants to fight September 12th. So Canelo literally has 6 weeks to go, and we have no fight announced. Meanwhile, Showtime, which I would imagine would be DAZN, Golden Boy, a direct rival or competitor, and he used to work with Al Heyman fighters, so, a direct competitor. Showtime just unveiled and launched a crazy schedule, including both Charlo brothers in damn great fights and respectable fights. Both should really be a unification. I got to stress that. Derevyanchenko, we know, beat Triple G. De La Hoya's fighter Canelo also agrees with me that Derevyanchenko won that fight. And 6 weeks out before the fight week of Canelo's fight, we have not heard one announcement from Golden Boy as to who he's fighting. We know there's a strained relationship, as is the case. You can listen to this DAZN interview in its entirety, and they talk about, what's your relationship? Did you have any interaction at the charity golfing game with Canelo? And if you listen to what De La Hoya was saying, he said, yeah, I seen him and it was good. He was with Steph Curry and boom, boom, boom. But he didn't really make it sound like I didn't see no pictures of them together, And that scene, if they had some kind of reunited and it feels so good, rest in peace to Travell. If they had some kind of reunited, I feel like why wouldn't there be any pictures of it, like any quick photo ops? So that leads me to believe that Canelo still might be they could have been both in Tahoe for the charity event, but the fact that there's, we're in the social media 2020 age where I feel like there'll be a picture of it. That's just me personally, but I digress. It doesn't matter. He didn't really say too much. He didn't say like, oh, me and Canelo had a great talk. Last time we heard, Canelo was talking through a litigator. Then De La Hoya throughout this interview was talking about how certain fighters, it's like babysitting, and they're getting fed bad information. And then he's being asked about fighting Canelo. Like, to me, this all just seems backwards to you. I feel boxing is a dirty sport, is a gritty sport. There's corruption, just as a fight, it's a brutal sport as the fight game in general. And you got to kind of get in and get out, get your ducats. De La Hoya is talking about making a return 12 years later. He's had rehab stints and, just run-ins with the law and DUIs and stuff like that. So that's an indication that he is somewhat abused his body in the last 12 years, like he has a DUI and things like that, run-ins and different things that have happened, you guys can Google. So he's talking about a comeback. I don't know if he's serious. He said this before, but I feel like as a promoter, you have to get that out of your system and almost determine and decide if you want to come back or you want to promote. And this is troubled times for DAZN and Golden Boy, because Bernard Hopkins just did a recent interview saying he would come back for, I think, Roy Jones Jr. fights, something like that. De La Hoya is talking about coming back. So out of the two fighters that are linked with Golden Boy, because Eric Gomez, I don't think he was a fighter or whatever, and Roberto Diaz, but the two guys that are former fighters are talking about coming back. It's kind of weird to me. And I feel like, how is it that De La Hoya is talking about making a comeback, which is his own personal business, but Canelo, your star right now, Canelo doesn't have to think about if he's retiring or if he's going to fight again. He's absolutely supposed to be fighting again. And we're 6 weeks out from his fight week, and we haven't heard one iota. Now, when he was talking about his last fight, he got stopped via knockout Manny Pacquiao, who jumped up 2 weight classes. He said, that wasn't me, I was a zombie. It's kind of funny because Deontay Wilder said he felt like a zombie, and old media took it and ran with it and said Wilder was making excuses. And De La Hoya literally said he felt like a zombie. He said not to make excuses, but I was weight drained coming from 60 to 47. I weighed 144. So there could be truth to that, but it's funny when people say not to make excuses and then kind of make an excuse. But needless to say, this looks shaky when you have your promoter not only talking about making a comeback, because Golden Boy seems to have had issues making certain fights with Canelo, like getting Canelo a timely fight, not procrastinating. The fight with Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders seemingly fell apart, stuff like that. Ryan Garcia's fight, and your promoter seems like he wants to come back and he's going to make a decision in September, he says. And just his interview, this whole interview was a bad look to me because it sounded shaky. Like there was a lot of points where De La Hoya would say X, Y, and Z. Like, oh, we should have Canelo's opponent in a few days. And then later in the interview, he says, we should know by next week if Canelo's going to fight. And then later he says, if Canelo fights, it should happen. It's definitely going to happen. So it's like, which one is it? You're going to know in a few days, you're going to know in a week, or, it should happen and he's definitely going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like he literally, if you listen to it, he said all that. He said, Canelo, we should know in a week, it should happen. We should know in a few days. And then later in the interview, he says, Canelo's definitely going to fight in September. They were asking about Ryan Garcia, same thing. They said, will Ryan Garcia, and this is a DAZN interview, so it's not like you're talking to the ops or anything else. This is the platform you brought your fighters to. They said, De La Hoya, will Ryan Garcia fight Luke Campbell? And he said, oh, I don't know. It's a dangerous fight, this, that, and the third. And then he said, it should happen. The WBC ordered it, so it has to happen. But then he later contradicts himself and says that if it happens. So which one is it, with all these things? Is Canelo fighting in September? It didn't sound definitive. Anytime that somebody is buying time or not giving you cohesive, consistent answers, then you have to question it. You can't say, I should know something in a couple days. I should know something in a week. I should know something about Canelo's fight, you know, in general in this 2 weeks. And then later you say Canelo will definitely happen. He'll definitely fight in September. It's like, it's all over the place. That's the point I'm making. Same thing with Ryan Garcia. You made it sound like the WBC ordered the Ryan Garcia fight with Luke Campbell, and it's a dangerous step up fight where Ryan will get credit. And you made it sound like, hey, the WBC ordered it. We have to have it happen. And then later, he specifically says, if it happens, if Ryan Garcia fights him. So these are just indications that these fights are not done. And I don't know when Ryan would be coming back for Luke Campbell. But again, your competitor, Showtime, they unveiled a monster, like 9-fight calendar or whatever, their whole calendar, and rolled out all these fights. We still don't know what PBC on Fox is going to do. And now you have De La Hoya talking about making a comeback. It's just, timing seems weird. Like, how at a time like this, when your star fighters, your biggest fighters are finna fight, you're talking about you are training with the small team and a secret. And De La Hoya has done this before. So it's like, I made the statement previously. It seems like De La Hoya is jealous. And I'm not saying jealous of a particular fighter per se. Like, I can't say he's jealous of Ryan or jealous of Canelo. But it seems to me like he misses that star power that he had in the 90s. And, you know, when it was his time, he misses that celebrity. He misses being the champion of the world. So, you know, it reminds me of like a child actor. When you're a child actor and you have a certain look, you might get all the roles. You're in The Sandlot, you in this movie, you know, you're in all the classic Disney movies and, you know, Mighty Ducks or whatever. And then you get older, you know, you fall out of that Hollywood inner circle, or your looks change or your voice changes and you're no longer that, you know, necessarily that cute kid that they were trying to cast, and the calls slow up. And then it's hard for some of those child actors in Hollywood because they're used to being in the Goonies and all these blockbuster films and making money, and then the roles slow up. That's what it kind of feels like with De La Hoya. He's had his time, and I think he misses like the attention and, you know, everybody knowing his name, putting out music albums, and, you know, just being a man. It's a lot of power. You even hear Mike Tyson talk about, you know, I don't want to go back to that man because I fear him. I'm afraid of that guy, you know. And he talks about who he used to be versus now. And I think it's something that fighters need to maybe even speak to somebody about, like, because it's like they forever live with a chip on their shoulder. We see how many fighters we've seen come back and you're like, man, it wasn't looking good. Like Antonio Margarito or something. He's coming back and he didn't look good in the Pacquiao fight. He didn't look good in the Shane Mosley fight. He didn't look good in the fight with Cotto in the rematch. You know what I'm saying? These dudes messed up his face and or knocked him out, stuff like that. So it's probably not going to get better for you, especially if you have a certain style. You have to have a certain style, like a Mayweather or something, complete skill set, take care of your body. Like, for example, I think Mayweather, he can come back and fight because he takes care. He don't drink and smoke and drugs and stuff like that. And I know that from sources, you know, people who are affiliated with him. And same thing with Andre Ward, know him personally, and he takes care of himself. De La Hoya, I don't know how much he took care of himself, but this whole interview was really weird. And I think De La Hoya misses that limelight. And he's talking about, I don't back down from a challenge. I just personally think that's a bad look, that you're saying you would fight your fighter that we know you have a public beef with. And that still doesn't seem like, based on seeing him in the Gulf, there wasn't no big reveal or pictures that I seen. So how's Canelo take pictures with the NBA star Steph Curry in Tahoe, but there's not one picture that I seen? And I'm tapped in with all of boxing and I follow various pages. I have not seen one picture from that charity event where there's several videos where Steph Curry's like this and Canelo shadow boxing, you know what I mean? They're doing a little slap boxing or whatever. And there's videos of pictures like that. And they're at the same, you know, golf tournament, the charity event. And I didn't see one picture of De La Hoya versus Canelo. It leads me to believe, based on that knowledge, that if there's no photo ops, then there's probably, they might have dapped up or something like that, but it wasn't like good. Or maybe they didn't even speak and he's just, trying to save face in the public. And now you're talking about fighting him, like I wouldn't even answer that question talking about I don't back down from a challenge, but that's me personally. So it looks bad. It looks bad to me. Can you imagine De La Hoya's talking about keeping it open, and he's even being asked by his own platform, DAZN, if he would fight Canelo. Like, listen how crazy that sounds. What if Al what if Al Heyman was talking about fighting Errol Spence or Danny Garcia, and Al Heyman was like, I'll fight Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? Let's say he used to box in Cleveland. Or a more realistic example of an actual fighter is Floyd Mayweather. Can you imagine if Floyd Mayweather, who has Mayweather Promotions, was talking about fighting his fighter Gervonta Tank Davis? I know it would go viral and make headlines, but that would sound crazy. And the funny thing is, sometimes the trainer, fighter, former fighter, whatever relationship is strained. There have been times where Floyd Mayweather and Gervonta Tank Davis don't look like they were seeing eye to eye, just like Canelo and Ryan Garcia, or excuse me, De La Hoya and Ryan Garcia, or De La Hoya and Canelo. But not one time do we hear Floyd Mayweather say like he wants to fight and tune up Tank Davis. I just feel like that's weird. I really do. Maybe that's just me. Then the last thing is Jermell Charlo. He says if De La Hoya could do damage at 154, then bring it. I'll fight you. And that's his ex-boss, because Golden Boy used to manage Jermell Charlo with Richard Schaefer and stuff when he was with Golden Boy, etc. And the funny thing is, people tried to insult Jermell Charlo. Why? He said, I'm the king of 154. If De La Hoya wants that smoke, if he's coming back, you heard him. He just said, De La Hoya said, I'm going through phases. They're going to see if they can keep me healthy and injury free. I got a small team. So if I decide to come back, you know how I get down. And De La Hoya has a bomb resume. De La Hoya, the fighter, is the man. He fought everyone he needed to fight, right? Beast of a resume. He has some beastly God tier performances. He's just a great fighter when he in his heyday, when he was fighting. So he's talking about I could do damage and I don't need no tune-ups. So why would Jermell Charlo not want to fight him? You know what I'm saying? He's saying he can make 154. So the whole situation looks weird, and it comes off to me as a bit desperate. That is my reaction. Sign up for ESPN Plus below. ESPN Plus, home of a lot of original content. They got documentaries, docuseries like Details. They got UFC, archive fights, boxing, some real classic stuff, and just BTS and exclusives. Sign up for ESPN Plus as a standalone app using my link. It does help the channel so I can keep pumping out the latest and greatest, get some new gear around. ESPN Plus, get it as a standalone app or bundle it. ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus. One price, $12.99 for all three of those apps. So use that link, sign up for the Patreon, YouTube channel members. I just wanted to review this because I thought it was extremely weird. When somebody sent me this as a headline or article, and I thought I read it wrong when it said De La Hoya, would fight Canelo. I'm like, what is that about? Like he's clearly got to be joking, but I mean, he left it kind of like it was open ended. We'll just see, and you're putting me on the spot. I just felt that was a weird answer. And it seems like rest in peace to Emmanuel Stewart. It just feels like De La Hoya is missing the limelight. And I just feel the timing is bad. I don't think he's really coming back. That's just me personally. But either way, I feel like it's a bad look because of the timing. Either you got to look at it like this. This is how I think. And if you guys disagree, you can. Damn, I don't remember him being that much bigger than Julio Cesar Chavez. That's crazy. But here's how I think. I look at it like this. Let's say either he's going to come back or he's not going to come back. Maybe he's just clout chasing and he's trying to make it look like he's going to come back, and he has absolutely no intentions of coming back. That's plausible because he's done this before, said he's running for president, said he's coming back, said he's, flexing the mirror, said he's coming back and training. And then there was a talk show with his old guy that's now has a lawsuit against him, Tattoo. Tattoo had this brief show, and then whatever happened in their relationship soured. But De La Hoya said he would fight Conor McGregor and he was coming back, and he said these weird things. So let's say he's just capping and he's selling wolf tickets. Then why would you distract from Virgil Ortiz's fight? Canelo's fight is not done and announced and sold up, Ryan Garcia, etc., to say some stuff you don't intend on following through with? Or as the head of the company, how are you going to balance when you don't have Canelo and Ryan Garcia's fight announced to the public? Is Ryan fighting Luke Campbell? The WBC said he had an extension, a 48-hour deadline, and then they gave him like a 48-hour extension or something, and we still haven't heard if Luke Campbell. It has not been announced. I can go to Golden Boy's page right now. It has not been announced officially. So my thing is, like, even if you are serious, either way you slice it, it's a bad look, because either you're serious and you really are coming back, which either way that it kind of takes away from fighters like Canelo. Like Canelo, we need to know who he's fighting. He got 6 weeks before his fight week, and we don't know that, but De La Hoya is talking about coming back. Or you're just clout chasing, and then it's just asinine because people think you're coming back and you really have no intentions of coming back, or it wouldn't be a good idea to come back. So either way, it's a bad look. New media, we work. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.